Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, it's good to see you, and thank you for your tireless efforts on behalf of this nation. I appreciate it. I'd like to mention two political prisoners in different parts of the world that we have reached out to and been in contact with. A Cambodian-American Democrat activist, Terry Singh, who's serving 6-year sentence on nonsense charges, and Gulshan Abbas, a Chinese Uyghur doctor languishing in a Chinese prison on a 20-year dubious charge. I hope you'll continue to advocate for these two.
Short answer is yes. We will and we are.
I want to reiterate something I said on the floor last week, specifically supporting President Biden in suspending key weapons deliveries to Israel that could be used for a full assault on Gaza and Rafah. Our president has stood in solidarity with the Israeli people since the horrific October 7th Hamas attack, which I might add included taking hostage someone with ties to my state, Hirsch Goldberg, Poland. There's recent evidence of life and survival, so we're anxious to see his return. But like President Biden and like many of us, I've had enough with Prime Minister Netanyahu's strategy in Gaza that has caused the deaths of thousands of innocent Palestinians, many of whom are women and children. How can we, in good conscience, continue to supply Netanyahu with weapons for a war where he restricts access to humanitarian aid like food, medicine, and fuel at the expense of women and children?
Senator, we've been determined from day one to do two things. One, to make sure that Israel had what it needs to defend itself, to make sure that October 7th couldn't happen again, but also, in so doing, to look out for the protection of civilians and their needs, their humanitarian needs. And from day one, we've been pushing, pressing Israel to make sure that access was there, supplies were there, distribution was there, deconfliction was there, and that's been virtually every single day of the last 8 months, working on that to try to improve the conditions for those who are caught in this horrific crossfire of Hamas's making, and particularly the children, the women, the innocent men who are suffering terribly every single minute of every single day.
We have heard over and over that there is an Israeli strategy to restrict access to humanitarian aid in Gaza. And as a consequence, children are starving to death and people are in desperate situations. I have personal friends of mine who've been there, medical doctors. The reports are horrific of what deprivation has been caused there. Is that at the hands of Israel's strategy, or is that a part of it?
In our judgment, this is not and has not been a deliberate attempt to deny people what they need, but this has not been the priority that it should have been and needs to be in terms of what Israel is doing in Gaza. It's, as we know, an incredibly complicated terrain in which to operate, given the nature of the enemy and what it does. But we have said for some time, for a long time, that in our judgment, the needs of the civilian population need to be put front and center, and to design everything else around that, not the other way around. Over these many months, as we've gotten different access points open, starting with Rafah back in October, to Kerem Shalom some weeks later, to other crossing points, whether it was Erez or the 96th crossing, the route from Jordan with trucks, now our own maritime pier. All of this has been designed, and with Israel's cooperation, to get assistance to people who desperately need it. But it has not been enough. It has not been effectively distributed, and people continue to suffer grievously. So we're working to do everything we can to maximize what they get. So deconfliction remains a real problem as well.
So I understand the administration's position and agree with it, that when it comes to denying them, for example, access to 2,000-pound bombs, which may destroy the lives of innocent people, and certainly would in those confined circumstances, that is an express statement by the United States that any policy of the Israelis that includes those bombs, we are not going to be complicit. Is that true?
To be clear about what the President said, and we've shared this for some time, we have deep concerns and in fact cannot support a major military operation going into Rafah absent a credible plan to protect civilians. We haven't seen such a plan. We have deep concerns in a dense urban environment like Rafah with the use of something like a 2,000-pound bomb. That's why we've been engaged in a discussion with the Israelis about it.
So the point I'm getting to, though, is when you look at the interdiction or denial of humanitarian aid and the deaths of innocent people, particularly women and children, what are we doing to put the pressure on Israel to stop that?
Oh, I think that's there every single day. The president's been very clear with Prime Minister Netanyahu about that. I've done the same with my various counterparts. We have commitments from Israel, including in writing, about the steps that haven't been taken, that need to be taken, that they say they will take and are taking, and we're working to hold them to those steps. We have to make sure that more aid gets into more people more effectively.
When I see this television coverage of miles and miles of trucks waiting to bring humanitarian aid, and I'm thinking, while there at the same time that these children are starving and being denied basic medical assistance, it strikes me that we're building extraordinary piers, temporary piers, at cost of millions of dollars, because the Israelis will not open up the gates to let the trucks in. Is that, am I drawing?
No, the pier which is now functional was designed to be a complement to, not a substitute for, these gates. And
so the gates are open?
So in the north, we have Erez and Zakim, which were recently opened. We have routes in the south, though, and this is what's happened in the last couple of weeks, with the operations now taking place in the area of Rafah, and particularly the Rafah Gate, that was shut down. Kerem Shalom was operating at much less capacity than before because of the military operations that Israel's engaged in the last few weeks.
Well,
so what we don't want to see is a reversal. We had terrible problems, particularly in the north, in getting aid in, and the north was a particularly acute disaster area for the people that were still there. That's been improved, again, not sufficiently, in opening these crossings from the north. We have convoys coming in from Jordan as well that are going directly to the north, Ashdod port. But now the situation in the south is deeply, deeply, deeply concerning because these gates have either been shut down or they're not operating as efficiently as they should.
I hope that the United States, through the President, will take the same resolute, determined stand when it comes to the interdiction of humanitarian aid. We have been briefed by credible sources that there is little or no smuggling taking place into Hamas and that the basic foodstuffs and medicine and fuel that are needed for these families that are struggling to survive there is being stopped and it trickles in instead of coming in at full force. I hope we show the same level of determination for that as we did with these 2,000-pound bombs.
We do. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Durbin. Senator Bozeman.